interviews, Spurs women, press conferences, covering everything Tottenham and England.
Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. In this edition, we will be discussing Tottenham's pre-season friendly against Team K League. Of course, the game was watched by 63,395 fans at the Seoul World Cup Stadium in South Korea. It finished Team K League 3, Tottenham Hotspur 4. What an entertaining game this was. Tottenham have now won 4 out of 4 pre-season friendlies, also beating Hearts, QPR, Vissel Kobe, and next up is Bayern Munich in South Korea on Saturday. Now, we are recording live on YouTube, on X, and of course Facebook, so please do get involved. Give us your thoughts on today's game, and also let us know how you are feeling as a Tottenham Hotspur fan right now. Now, of course, goals from Kulusevski, a brace from Heung-min Son, and another goal during pre-season for Will Lankshear. Spurs had a 3-0 lead at the break. We conceded 3 in the second half. I have 3 very special guests with me, as per usual. Back with us is Johnny Bowe. Johnny, how are you?
I'm very good, Chris. Sun is shining here in Dublin, and Spurs have another win, so all is good.
Also back with us is channel regular Becky Day. Becky, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Great to be on. Enjoying the school summer holidays. I've been in the garden watching the Olympics, watching the game, just come back in. So apologies if there's suntan cream all over my face. But yeah, great to be here to chat the game.
Lovely to have you here. And joining us for the very first time, we welcome Spurs YouTuber and season ticket holder Jonny Hamme. Johnny, how are you?
I'm great. Finally got on. I've just been in the Korean simulator outside, got the heating on, got the clothes on, sat outside, dripping with sweat, running around. I don't know how they managed it for 45, let alone for 90 in that heat. But it was a good game, and glad to be on, ready to chat about it.
Well, Johnny, let's start the show with you. Of course, you're here for the first time and you're very welcome. Yep. Give us your thoughts on today's game and your thoughts overall on the 4 pre-season friendlies that we've played so far.
I think it's the old one, tale of 2 halves. First half, very impressive. Shape was good. Interpassing was good. Lots and lots of positives. And the second half, it was a bit of same old Spurs counter-attack. I mean, yes, you could say we were a bit leggy, the temperature and all the rest of it, but I think there's no excuse for that, to be honest with you, because you had fresh legs on, bar a few for the first few minutes. It's been the same. I think we've conceded 6 goals in the last 3 games. It might be right, it might be wrong, I'm not quite sure. I think it's about 6 goals. And I still think we've still got a few of the same problems. What's really worrying me, I've got to be honest with you, is we still haven't had our defence playing as a unit. And with the team coming home on the weekend and only probably 13, 14 days before the season starts, it has to be a worrying aspect of the game. But back to the positives. Jamie Donnelly was outstanding in that first half, and I know Mikey Moore gets a lot of the hype and the praise, and rightly so. But I think Jamie Donnelly's been overshadowed, playing what people think is a left back, but really is an inverted 10. He's running off the ball, creating space today for Sonny to run and Kulu to run into, especially in that first half, was superb. I think for me, he was head and shoulders the best player in that first half. Although obviously Sonny and Kulu will get most of the plaudits. Lots of positives, and I'm sure Ange is frustrated. To be honest with you, he seemed very frustrated. Forget the drinks break outburst, but I think after the halftime break, full-time break when he was interviewed. He did not seem happy, but I don't know what you guys thought. I could go on, Chris, but I'll let some others talk.
Johnny, let's stay with you for a second, because you remember when Ozzy Ardiles was the manager. It reminded me of that today. Attacking, and then the other team attacking. It was just such an open, entertaining game, wasn't it?
It was a fantastic game for the neutral, or if you're a basketball fan. But to be truthful with you, for the faint of heart, as you get older, you don't want to see that. Listen, look, I've been crying out for 4 years for attacking football. You know, as a lifelong Spurs fan, that's what we brought up on. That's why we're Spurs fans on the whole. And it's been lacking. But for me, there has to be a balance between this all-out attack and defending. So I'm a big fan of three at the back. Have been for many months now. And I think it showed in that second half. The counter-attacking. Breaking, we were left exposed on numerous occasions. I understand that we're playing with Skip and Emerson Royal, and so we are slightly handicapped, or more than slightly handicapped by that. But it's worrying. I've got to be honest with you. It is a worrying scenario. I think the midfield screening has to be tip top this season. And I just need to see the team together. I think we could start a little bit worrying this year. It could be harem scarum for the first 2 or 3 games of the season. But hopefully there's some more players to come in. But I won't hold my breath.
It's 30 days left of the transfer window. We will come on and talk about that. Don't worry about it. Jonny, Bowe, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on today's game and how you're feeling as a Spurs fan, and what have you made of the 4 friendlies so far? 4 wins out of 4. Some people are saying, well, we haven't had a real test yet, but I'll tell you what, it is very testing in the conditions that we've played in Japan and South Korea today.
It was very humid by all accounts. I mean, anybody that was there commentating was saying how hot it was, and it was a dead heat. So people were just sweating, literally sitting on the bench watching. The last time we played this team, it was 6-3, I think, to us. So there's always a lot of goals with this team, and it's end-to-end open football. And it's exciting to watch. It's like when Ozzy Ardiles was playing, and even when Klinsmann was playing. It's that kind of open style football. Everyone's just going for it. Only thing is, though, when you play in the Premier League and you do play against a tougher opposition, they're able to get you. You could see in the game today that on the counter attack, those 2 goals when we were 3-0 up, the 2 goals came from a counter attack from the opposition, and they were able to catch us out. And you just know that teams like Liverpool and Arsenal will be doing that to us when the season starts. So if we can kind of rectify that and improve on the defence. I think there's lots to be excited about going forward into the season. Some of the players I thought today were great. Donnelly, Jed Spence, actually, when he came on, I thought was very good. I wouldn't like to see him go out on loan again. I just think I'd like to see him in the A team. I thought Maddison he looks like he's someone who's going to hit form very soon. He was just missing a lot, hitting the post, and shots were going wide, but he's going for shots. At least he's taking risks, and he's not kind of stumbling on the ball. He's just taking the shot as soon as he gets it. I thought that Abbott was a player I thought was very good when he came. These are a lot of players that I wasn't very familiar with, and over the last couple of weeks I've been coming more familiar with them. And if he's building a youth side like David O'Leary built with Leeds, if he's building that type of side, I'm all for it. I think maybe that's the future. We have to go in a different direction. When we had Conte and Mourinho, it was more what we have now. What can we do in the short term? This seems to be a long-term project. So let's see where it goes. But the defence part certainly has to improve because we do have the attack, and the midfield seems to be quite good. So once we can improve on the defence, Chris, I think things will go well for us.
Becky, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on today's game.
It's instant listening to everybody. I agree with what you said. You've got to factor in the heat. You've the sense of we haven't got our 2 centre backs playing. So I appreciate there's been goals conceded, but it's not what we're hopefully going to see as a defensive kind of makeup. For me, what was really nice was seeing Gray play in the middle, because the last couple of games he was playing centre back, wasn't he? When we've been having games where we've had like a full 11 and a second 11, and then kind of interchanging. Gray was playing at the back with Skip, so to see kind of Royal and Davis is again, we did have that this season against City when we had injuries, but to see Gray in the middle with Bergwall, I thought was very good. It was nice seeing Son back on the left. That kind of we've said a lot that obviously with Charleston being injured, he's been playing up front in pre-season and he hadn't scored up until today. So putting him back out on the left, the first goal the goals that he's kind of scored are the goals that we kind of remember Sonny scoring. I thought Kulusevski played well in the kind of middle sort of position. Johnson was a little bit quieter, but then we had the changes and, Werner came on, he made the assist for Lankshear. So, I went to the Hearts game and Lankshear, seeing him for the first time in real life, he is such a unit, and his kind of movement off the ball for the goal today from the cross that Werner put in, I thought was excellent. So, and I usually said about Donnelly and other players like that, but I just thought it was a game where he's still sort of interchanging where the positions are for players, which I know when you hear most of them being interviewed, they say that they'll play anywhere and they'll do whatever they're told, and they're kind of being kind of trained and coached to play in different positions. So that was quite nice to sort of see that play out today. The idea of Spence coming on for Porro, I think you're kind of seeing, because we still haven't got Udogie back, and it's still kind of sort of seeing those sort of players. Dragisin came on for a little bit at the end. I just thought it was nice kind of seeing those sort of, the kind of the optimism that we those games where we had that first 10 run at the beginning of last season and we scored those goals. I appreciate we all remember what it was like with Conte and Mourinho, where we scored and we didn't concede many, but that's not how Ange plays, and he's quite honest and open about that. So that's something we are going to have to kind of get used to. But I just think those players that are kind of, Sarr, for example, they come in, they just look so assured, and seeing the young players come in, like I said, when I was at Hearts, you really noticed the massive change in intensity when the younger players came on. And I think because he's kind of now interwoven it into the sort of first team players, it was a bit more chaotic in the second half, because you've got those younger players that are kind of, wanting to kind of make their mark, and that was kind of the way it was. But again, you can see that the young players have played together so much that it's almost like seamless when they come on. So it's really interesting the next few weeks to see how many of them do remain or go out on loan, because I think that a lot of them have done enough to kind of to stay and be part of the first team setup. But yeah, overall, but like I said, to see kind of Son score and they got that kind of goals that we're kind of used to from Son was excellent. And he's spoken in the week, hasn't he, about saying he thinks his preferred position is on the left, which we most of us would agree with. It's just interesting what's going to happen with the kind of striker position. Are we going to have Richarlison? Are we going to have somebody else? Are we going to use Lankshear? And kind of see how that's going to play out as well will be quite interesting in the next few weeks. But I agree with the people in the chat. We've got 2 Bayern Munich matches next, so that you kind of would like to see the change in intensity, really.
Interesting there, Becky. You mentioned Richarlison, you mentioned Lankshear, but you didn't mention Kulusevski, who is currently playing through the middle. We know that Ange Postecoglou loves versatile players. We can see what he's trying to do here. Do you think that, and dare I say it, and please don't shoot me down, but I've got to mention it on the podcast, do you think that there is a chance that we don't sign a striker in this window, and Kulusevski and Richarlison and Son, they rotate that position?
Well, yeah, and even with Lankshear, I think certainly in terms of the European games, I've read that quite a bit. A few people have kind of made that comment, I think, just sort of because we haven't got anybody in early. But it could be. I think if, like Ange said, didn't he, that they're still going for the 3 positions that they set out at the beginning of the transfer window. But equally, if those don't happen for whatever reason, he has to kind of prepare a team if that doesn't happen. So maybe that is something that is his thinking. And I think Kulusevski has sort of said himself that he's, often when I watch him play for Sweden, he plays in that kind of central position. So I think he would probably say it would be his preferred position as well. So maybe that's kind of what Ange is thinking. But yeah, certainly the idea that players are kind of designed to play sort of wherever they're being asked to, which is quite a nice thing. But yeah, I think, we would like a striker. It's interesting with like Richarlison, like the Spurs Twitter feed were putting out videos of him yesterday, and then the next minute you're hearing him being linked and we're getting somebody else in, and it's quite confusing as to kind of, where things are going. He always seems quite happy, seeing him holding the trophy after the match on Wednesday or the weekend, wasn't it? It was quite funny when he didn't even play. So you just don't know. But I think Ange, to be fair to him, sees players as the positions as opposed to the personality. So I think he would use that as a kind of backup if necessary.
Yeah, good point. And also, Emerson Royale started the game today, and he is on the verge of joining AC Milan. That's another talking point. But let's hear from. There's a lot of talking points that we're going to cover. Let's hear from Ange Postecoglou. I've got a 3-minute clip of Ange. This is what he had to say after the game.
Yeah, game was okay. We obviously we looked a bit tired tonight, fair to say, and understandably so. We were working hard in these conditions. We weren't as sharp as we want to be, but credit to the lads. They kept working hard. We did some nice things, some not so nice things, but I think they'll feel better after getting through that game.
Obviously out tonight, it's hot, it's humid, and with the way we play, it's all about intensity, tenacity, discipline. How do you feel they cope with the conditions?
Yeah, not too bad. Like I said, I don't think we're in ideal condition going into it. We've obviously had a couple of days of hard training, but we don't want to adjust how we play. That's the challenge for our boys, just to keep going. Like I said, I think we'll gain a lot out of it from that respect, from a physical standpoint. So I think that's positive.
And obviously it's 4 wins from 4 now in pre-season. You can take a lot of positives from that, right?
Yeah, look, beyond the results, it's more about how we're playing. And like I said, there's some good things tonight. I thought we scored some nice goals again. But obviously still some things we need to work on. But overall, in terms of where we're at in terms of pre-season, it was an okay night.
And in terms of, I just want to bring it back to Sonny's first goal. For him to deliver in front of his home crowd with his trademark finish, trademark celebration, must be very special for him.
Yeah, he's one that doesn't let his standards drop, and he doesn't worry about conditions or opposition. He just maintains the highest possible standard, and he did that again tonight.
And in terms of the crowd, 63,000 people turned out the other side of the world to come and watch us. That's very special.
Yeah, it's great. It's been unbelievable since the moment we arrived, to be honest. But yeah, it makes a difference when you play in front of, in big stadiums, in front of big crowds. I think the players enjoy it, and it adds a little bit of intensity to the game. So and hopefully they got entertained tonight.
And in terms of young lads, obviously we've got a lot of young lads within the squad. Many of them, this is their first tour. How do you feel they've coped with everything that's been thrown at them so far?
Yeah, they've been okay. We've given them opportunities, and for the most part they've taken those opportunities. And again, they're working hard at training, and that's their opportunity to be in front of us every day. Don't always have that luxury when we're back home, and they've all acquitted themselves well. And tonight again, I thought for the most part they were good in the game.
And just a word on Skippy. Obviously, he took a bit of a knock right at the end and had to come off. I know it's a bit early doors on that, but how is he doing?
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. It was just a knock. I think the pleasing thing is everyone should have got through the game okay. So some more minutes for the lads. Good to get Rado some minutes as well. So hopefully Destiny comes back into it in the next few days. So that's positive.
Thank you very much, Ange.
Jonny, let's come to you. Ange Postecoglou last season said on so many occasions about that we need to improve in that final third. Now, in the 4 pre-season games that we've played so far in the last couple of weeks, I feel like we have improved in that final third. But let me go back to the question I asked Becky about Richarlison. Do you think that Richarlison will stay at the club? Would you like to see him stay at the club? We're all saying about that we need to sign a striker. Dejan Kulusevski is now playing in that false number 9 role. What do you see will happen? And do you think that Ange Postecoglou is happy now in that final third?
So people in my group are going to be laughing right now if I ask that question. Right. So, look, I don't think Richarlison will go. Purely and simply, he wants to play for Brazil. He wants to be Brazil's number 9. If he goes to Saudi, he's not going to be Brazil's number 9. It's as simple as that. The league's just not good enough. Is there anyone out there in Europe that has the money? The answer is no. No one in Europe has got the money nor the inclination to pay the money that it's going to take to get him out the club. My thought is all top clubs have at least 2 number 9s. We have one that's injured. We need to be either buying another one, or there needs to be a plan that Lankshear is going to be given opportunity to either come on as a make weight for the last 20 minutes or a quarter of an hour, or he's going to play in games. I think we all would like to see an out-and-out striker. But the thing is, Ange, you mentioned it before, he likes flexibility. He likes a player that can play across the front 3. So he's not fixed. So if you've got injuries like we have under the intensity of Ange ball, players can switch around. We saw there was a lot of crying out, especially from me last season, that Kulu can't play out wide on the right. He needs to be brought inside. I don't feel like he took his opportunity with both hands. And now we're seeing him push forward into a false 9. and he seems to be performing very well. Good upper body strength, good ball retention. I still don't think he's an out-and-out striker. And when you play in, you know, I don't think he's got the presence, say, of a Havertz to play that position in the Premier League. If you're going to play with a false nine, that's my opinion. I would still have Kulu in my squad, 100%. I think it's going to be very, very important that this season that our wingers take on their man. I don't know about everyone else, but I'm really sick and tired of us coming down those flanks, breaking and checking back. Nothing a defender hates more than running back towards goal when the ball's whipped in first time, with it running backwards. But as soon as you check back and the defender's allowed to face the ball, all day long, just keep doing that. And I just don't think there's fluidity to the attack at all. There was nice interchange passing, like I mentioned in the first half, with Donnelly making intelligent runs. It's about football IQ. And Donnelly seems to have a better football IQ at times than Johnson did in that first half, because he was making those intelligent runs to create space. And I think, you know, whoever plays in those forward positions, those intelligent runs are really important when we come against teams with a low block and opening them up. And I don't feel like we did enough of that this season. So I think Richarlison will stay. We got to hope that his performances match that purple patch that he had between November and February, where he really did, you know, smash it. I think it was something like 9 goals and 4 assists in that period. But we need consistency. We need a target man. And as Becky said, you know, he's a big unit, Lankshear. And I think that, you know, there is something about him that's special. His movement, again, IQ, football IQ. The move with Werner today, where a lot of young defenders would have rushed to be on the end of it. He held back, he watched the line, and was class the way he moved in there to finish the ball. I think we desperately need another backup, though. I mean, I'm full of hope for Lankshear for the future, but I think all of us right now want to see maybe an established top striker. And the midfield, just to say today with Bergvall, the ability on that ball to move that ball so quickly before the ball's arrived, he knows exactly where that ball's going. He's read. His periphery vision is fantastic. And if we can maintain that and move the ball, I think we might have more opportunity to score. But it's about the overall team performance and the fluidity of the team. And I don't think Ange was happy today. And I'll just finish from the final bit, which was when he was asked about the kids. How do you think the kids, they were okay? Now, I'm not convinced, like you mentioned at the beginning, how many of these kids are really going to be part of Ange Ball for this season, and how many are going to be upset that they're sent on loan or sent back to the under-21s. That's the big question. It's the $24 question right now. We need to know. We've all got our ideas. We've all got our favourites. But I think when it comes down to it, push comes to shove, there will be less than a handful that are there and involved.
Jonny Bowe, let's come to you. On what Jonny said there, these youngsters, the development players, you know, Jonny and I are very used to seeing the likes of Lankshear and Donnelly perform week in, week out, because we go to the under-21 games. Yeah. And last year was an exceptional season for them. But some of these players are going to end up going back to the under-21 squad. Some of these players are going to end up going out on loan. But it is fair to say that every single one of these development players have taken their opportunity. They've got on that plane to Japan and South Korea, and they have grabbed their opportunity. And of course, we haven't even mentioned Jed Spence grabbing his opportunity as well. Yep. So, you know, it's great to see, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they've made Ange Postecoglou think about, you know, who he's going to pick in his in the A team when we start the season, and now he has much more of a choice. You just going back to Richarlison, I would, I do like Richarlison. I know he's had some personal issues off the pitch, but he probably will stay. I think I'd still like to see him leave, and I'd love, as I said a few weeks ago, I think on the show to you, Chris, Ivan Toney. I think he would be, just when he took that penalty and he came on to the Euros and he came on the last few minutes, I think he would be good for our team. But just getting back to the younger players, I mean, we did have Troy Parrott, you might remember, around the Mourinho time, and Mourinho just wouldn't introduce him. He put him on for like last 10 minutes, and then just said he wasn't able to cut it out. But then when he goes out on loan to other teams, he seems to perform. I think it comes down to coaching. I think we need to develop these young players, and if we have 6 or 7 of them, we'll keep 4 of them in the main team and introduce them and start developing them that way. And you can be sure that the board, the Spurs board, and particularly Daniel, he'll love that, And I agree. I think we need to get away from. I mean, it's good having Ivan Toney in the team if we do get him, or Eze from Crystal Palace. But if we can't get those players, we just have to develop the ones we have and get good coaching, and we do have good coaches there. So there's no reason why these players can't be brought into the team. Other clubs have been able to, Arsenal, for example, our biggest rivals, they've been able to introduce younger players into their squad and develop them. We should be able to do that too. And, from what I saw today, and we had a lot of substitutes. I think all the substitutes nearly got to play, and there was a lot of changes. And the ones that came on were great. I thought Abbott was very good. Jed Spence, I don't think he should go out on loan. I think it's now time to give him a shot, this season, see what he's able to produce. You have to give these young guys a chance. You can't just put them on the bench or just put them back in the under 21s. Not only does it really dent their confidence, it just brings the morale down. I think you have them there, coach them, get them better, make them better players, give them more confidence. And I think it's great to see Ange playing them. And maybe it has given him some food for thought. He's probably starting to say, I'm very impressed with that guy. So Hope Donnelly, Abbott, thought Jed Spence was great. And I have to say, I was critical of him the last time I was on Timo Werner. I think he's actually playing very well. So if we do keep him and we let Richarlison go and bring in Eze or I know Eze isn't a striker or whatever, but I would like to see Ivan Toney. And why would he go? Why would Ivan Toney go to Chelsea or someone like that now? I mean, would you really want to go? Because they're the type of team that will come in and hijack the deal, Chris, at the end. For Toney. When we offer 45, someone will come in with 65 million, and then you're into all this sort of stuff. And then he goes to Chelsea. We're kind of chase again, But why would you go there? I'd rather go and play for Ange Postecoglou, and you're going to be playing exciting football and that you'll play. But the youth development, I think things are looking bright. I think we have to start again. Forget about what's been going on the last decade. Just start again and develop these young players and get some star players, and hopefully not sell them on in 5 or 6 years' time for 100 million or 70 million. Let's keep them.
Johnny, could you imagine? I was just thinking a picture of Ivan Toney signing, and he's in the Spurs training kit, BetMGM. There's a meme for you there. I mean, you can just see it. It's so Spurs.
Can't see it happening.
No,
myself.
never.
Becky, let's come to you. I see and speak to a lot of Spurs fans, and I think half of them are like, well, this is a fantastic time to be a Spurs fan in terms of the future, planning for the future, these youngsters being signed, the development players coming through. But isn't this yet again another manager at our football club that is just a couple of players away from really kicking on, moving on, and taking us to that next level? Isn't it imperative that we get the players in that we need, that Ange Postecoglou needs? Experienced Premier League players, perhaps, experienced players, decent players of real quality to take us to that next level and perhaps challenge for a trophy next season.
Yeah, and it's something that we all want. We all like. I think I agree with what you said. If we think about over the last maybe 5-6 years, is that we've never had this kind of strength and depth of young players that really feel like they are able to step up. But the problem is that just listening to all of that and then reading some of the comments, is I still think, and I've said this before, Ndombele has kind of affected them. Lo Celso to some extent. You could even argue Richarlison. they try and put big money onto players, and it hasn't always worked out. And I think sometimes that is in the back of their head, the owners, and they think, well, Vicario didn't cost very much, Udoka didn't cost very much, Sarr didn't cost very much, even Kulusevski and Bentancur, players like that, is that the kind of the model even before Ange came was to sort of bring players in that were less expensive and therefore build them for the future. So I do think, you could argue that they have brought in players that have cost money. The problem is those players haven't necessarily done a great deal. And I think that makes them a little bit more cautious. The thing about Tony is that it's interesting. I agree with Jonny. If we get him, brilliant. If we don't, I think there are, it may have been a missed opportunity. Yeah, but equally, I'm not sure. I've said this before, whether his attitude is right. I think we all felt, those of us that watched the England games, when he came on, I thought he performed very well. Aside from the penalty, when he came on, there was that game, wasn't it, at the end where he either did the assist or he was near to the assist, but then he didn't play him for the next, I think it was 2 matches. So I was quite pleased with the way he performed, and I thought, actually, okay, maybe he does suit coming to Spurs. But just again, reading the comments, Werner's cross today was a low cross. It wasn't a cross in the air for someone to head in. We don't really do those sort of crosses, and I'm not, just reading about what people are saying about Richarlison. Richarlison, he holds the ball up. He isn't necessarily into player that, Kulusevski was doing his role today. But Richarlison, when he's fit, is awkward and he annoys defences. And we remember what he was like at Everton, and I remember when he was like at Watford as well. But injuries have kind of hampered that. But is Tony necessarily going to slot into the way where we run to the byline and cross it low? I'm not sure he necessarily is. Having said that, watching Lankshear today and watching him at Hearts, he was on the end of that because of his positioning. There's no reason why Tony wouldn't have been on the end of that either. So it's one of those sort of, I'm not quite sure. And then you make the comment about the betting element of it and that kind of his attitude. And I'm not sure that side of it either. But yeah, I do agree with what you're saying. I do think we are 2 or 3 players. For me, I've said this before, I would like personally homegrown Prem-proven players as well, which is why Eze obviously is mentioned. We've had Gallagher mentioned about before. People talk about Neto and about whether he's as injury prone as Richarlison is. I'm reading the comments about Maddison and about how he's been since he's come back. It's a tricky one because you do just feel that looking at what we've got currently at the moment and the kind of, like you said, about the interplaying positions and the squad and the morale of the squad and that kind of team element that seems to be back now. Davis has spoken a lot in the week about, that impact and how that's kind of, he's seeing that change through the different managers. But it just feels like those couple of 3 players will really take us that next step level. But again, when you speak to Ange says, yeah, we've got them, we're waiting, and we're waiting for the clubs to kind of give us the green light. But how long do we wait? It's do we then go out for other people or have the step up, as you said, of the youth players this pre-season kind of change their thinking and actually thinking, well, no, if we don't get those 3 so-called targeted players that we're looking for, maybe until January we'll be okay with what we've got. It's very tricky because no one knows the answer. No one knows what's going on behind the scenes. And I do think the club are a lot better at keeping things quiet than maybe they have been in the past as well, which makes it all, crazy.
Becky, with that said, I feel like half the fan base is raging about us not signing big name players or experienced players. And some people are being very calm about the situation, saying, well, there's 30 days left. Where do you sit?
Yeah, someone put on Twitter this afternoon about where we were exactly the same point last season, and we'd signed, I think, 3 players, and we hadn't signed 3 players. Obviously, we signed Johnson late. I think we signed Vicario and Maddison like a day after each other in July, I think, late July, something like that. So someone put kind of where we were up to, and it was very sort of similar. I think it's because for me, it's the same sort of 3 or 4 players that are being mentioned all the time. Now, again, is that because they don't know what's going on behind the scenes, or is it just those 3 or 4 players that we're going for and nobody else? And then people are worrying, going, well, we've had it before where we didn't, in the past, that we needed to move somebody on before we brought someone in. The moving on of the players this summer has been phenomenal. I think we're nearly up to like 9 or 10 players that have moved on. So that can't be as a reason anymore because of the amount of players that have gone. But again, I think the not knowing frustrates people. I think they want to hear something's going on. But Ange is quite calm about it. But again, he can. I think he said in comments, hasn't he, that everybody who comes on pre-season with him, he treats them the same. He, because I've just mentioned Lo Celso, didn't I? Then we've got Lo Celso to come back. those sort of players that will come back into the form, he treats them as their players that are here until they're players that they're not here, if that makes sense. So, he treats them, the coaching's the same, the format the same, how we're going to play is the same. And then if they're not here, they're not here. I know with Region, wasn't it? And Hill didn't come on the tour because they were allowed to look for other clubs, and so did Højbjerg. So, I think you kind of then look at it as the ones that travelled are in Ange's thoughts. And again, we can't even predict who's going to go out on loan, like you just said then. We really can't tell, because I think pre-season, yes, it's been high scoring and maybe high conceding, but it's been almost every single person has had sort of 30, 35, 40 minutes each. It's not like people have gone and then not played. He is really having a really good look at these players.
Jonny, let's come to you. I know recently, in recent years, you've been very critical of the way that Spurs have done things, as I think a lot of Spurs fans have. Some of the decisions have been quite odd and not what the fans have wanted. In terms of the transfer window, are you worried at the moment about the lack of business that Spurs have done? And do you think that Ange is unhappy with what he's got so far, or where do you sit with it?
Listen, I'll go past and present, right? Past, Steve Hitchin put us back years, okay? He's scouting the setup at the academy. It was wrong. Everything was wrong, right? Fabio's come in, Don Fabio's come in with Steinson and Scolding and so on and so forth. We know who they are, and they've ripped up the playbook. They've started again, and we've sorted the academy. And I was telling people this 2 years ago, what was going to go on here. And of course, we live in the now. People aren't worried, interested in what's going to happen 2 years down the line. So I was, talking to the wall half the time. And also this thing, because we were so used to having poor transfer windows and money thrown away down the toilet. And then suddenly Fabio's coming in and he's signing these players. Who's this Papasar? Who's this Destiny Udogie? Who's Vicario? We don't want Vicario, we want Raya, right? And there's an uproar and people are throwing their arms everywhere and going mad. I had absolute utter faith. Yes, there a couple have gone wrong. Brian Gill didn't work out. But when you look at that team, on the whole, that Ange has got, a lot of that team, most of that team, has come from Fabio's business that he's done over 18 months. And of course, Lange is added to that. The problem that we have right now is, whether we like it or not, FFP and PSR are grinding the transfer market to a halt, okay? There's deals being done between Villa and Chelsea that are being investigated by the Premier League. Try proving, though, that these deals are fudged, right? It's all subjective how much a player's value is. But other than that, there is not a lot of deals going down at the moment, and they're all waiting for the domino effect. If player A, big club, moves, that triggers action. Right now, nothing is moving. Europe, bar 2 or 3 clubs are bankrupt. They're pleading poverty. Every time we try and get rid of a player, or another club from the Premier League tries to get rid of a player, they don't have any money. You try and, if we were trying to buy Højbjerg, right, or Brian Gill from them, I can guarantee you can add another 10, 15 million onto the price that we're selling them for. That's the way it is, and we have to live with it. But right now, nothing is moving, and there's a set amount of money. I don't believe there's a lot of money. We're still paying back debt. Some of that debt's been restructured, and there's other debts which haven't been restructured. Out at 670 million at 2.75, there's other debts that haven't been, and they have to be paid back. And I don't like it. You see all the money coming in from everything outside the stadium, and as a general fan, you're thinking, well, where's all that money going? Okay, surely it should be going into the team, the game-changing stadium. I think that there isn't a lot of money, and I think that they have their set targets, and those targets are the ones, and they will not be deviated from those targets. And I personally think I would rather us sign 2 top players than go down the route of buying 3 or 4 or 5 bit part players, and we end up with a pile of deadwood that another manager or Ange has to get rid of.
The thing is, though, Johnny, when you look at players like Van der Ven and Vicario, for instance, to name two, people said, who are these? Who are these guys? Look at what a season they had. And I agree with Becky. It's not all about how much money you spend; 100%. It is how you spend it. And to give a bit of credit to the club, in the last 12 months since Andrew's come in, the amount of players we have offloaded as a football club, which is quite remarkable. And I think they've done a fantastic job there. But going back to my point earlier, so many managers in our history that we have seen, always 2 or 3 players away. Now, Andrew's talking about winning the Premier League. He is talking about the big prizes. He's not interested in 5th, 4th, 3rd or 2nd. He wants to be number 1. In order for us to get number 1, and you've said it yourself, you've been impressed with the business that we have done recently.
Yeah.
How confident are you as a Spurs fan now, knowing what you've seen in the past, but also knowing what you've seen in the past 12 months under Ange? Because let's face it, he has been backed in both windows.
100%.
How confident are you in the next 30 days that he's going to get everything that he wants?
I don't think he'll get everything he wants, but I think he's in agreement that he must only get the players that fit the system. There must be no compromises as to the targets. So if we can't get player A, we're not going to get player C just because we need a player, right? We won't buy that player, and we'll have to get by until the next transfer window where we can acquire the player. And I think this is the mistake, that we've made many times before. In our history, we've gone for A and we haven't got it, and we've ended up going for some other player, and it's been a disaster. So I think the thing is, Johnny,
Ange did actually say this in the press conference. There's no point going out and, just signing anyone, because I feel sometimes that Spurs fans, they just want signings. They've got to be the right players.
Listen, we all want sexy signings. We all, I don't remember the last time I thought to myself, wow, Van der Vaart was probably the last signing where I went, who? You're kidding. We're signing Van der Vaart. That was probably the last time that I got absolutely so excited about a signing of a player, a marquee player. Yes, he was coming to the end of his career. He'd already had an illustrious career, but I just think that be patient. Would I like Eze? 100%. I think he's Spurs. He's got Spurs written on his back. But the chances of us coughing up, it's not just the £60 million. It's the £60 million, the bonuses, the wages. It's a huge package. The good thing is, as Becky has mentioned, and you've mentioned, and I've mentioned before on Spaces and stuff, we have got rid of, it must be £50 million a week. £1 million a week in wages. It must be now. It must be there when you include Kane and Dombele, Dye, go through it, Perisic. The list is endless.
There's so many players.
It must be £50 million a year. So whether they're clearing the decks out here for a big signing and to carry that wage as well, I'd like to think so. I think we will sign 2 players personally. I think that's what we will get. Whether they will be the 2 players I want, but just bear in mind, guys, right out there, is you complained who is Saul, you complained who is Destiny, you complained and even when we signed Mickey Van der Ven, but we wanted Tap Sober, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You did. You got Mickey Van der Ven, and now he's eating out you got him eating out the palm of your hand. So trust the process. We all want it now. We all want success today and not tomorrow. Me especially, right? But we have to stay with the process. I haven't bought into the process because I thought it's jammed tomorrow. We're never going to see it. But something tells me, I don't know why we say it every year, but something just feels a little different this year, that we are finally, with the youth, clearing the deadwood, and coupled together, the jigsaw pieces are slowly coming together. And we might be 3 or 4 pieces short of it, but we're moving in the right direction.
Johnny, I've got 3 very quick questions for you. Just give me one-word answers on these 3 questions. Do you think we will sign Eze?
No.
Do you think we'll sign Tony?
No.
How many players do you think we're going to get in before the end of the window?
2.
Okay. Interesting. Right, Johnny Bowe, let's come to you. We're 44 minutes in and we haven't really spoken about today's game, so let's get on to it. Now, after 12 minutes, a brilliant run and great footwork from Heung-min Son laid it on a plate to Pape Matar Sarr, who shot wide. A couple of minutes later, 2 shots on target for Spurs, a double save from the goalkeeper. In the 21st minute, new Tottenham Hotspur signing, Yang Min-hyuk, who of course was playing for Team K League today, turning Emerson Royale. That was a funny moment, I tell you. And a couple of minutes later, firing over the bar. Son went down after a challenge. He wanted a penalty. The referee said no. And a couple of minutes later, Heung-min Son on target, 1-0 Tottenham. Goalkeeper save from Heung-min Son, and then Kulusevski fired into the net. Johnny Bowe, let's come to you on the first goal. Kulusevski on target again, playing that central role as I mentioned earlier. What have you made of Kulusevski in that central role? And do you think that this is going to be his best season in the Spurs shirt so far this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think when he came in initially, he got off to a flying start and things were going very well. And then it was a bit of a slump. And it does happen with players. But I think having watched him in pre-season, anytime he's been playing, he's been quite sharp. And it's particularly in that position he's in. I think that's probably the position he needs to be playing in all the time. You know, he could probably play in a striker's role. A lot of these players start out sometimes in midfield or centre back or whatever, and then you realise actually they might be able to play in a different position. But he's definitely better when he's going forward, and he's a real Spurs player. He's the kind of typical Spurs player that we had in the 80s when Steve Archibald was playing and Ricky Villa, that kind of style of play. So it's very exciting to see him playing better. I mean, there was a time when he wasn't playing that great, and a lot of fans were criticising his performances. So he didn't have a great game there, and he was taken off after 60 minutes and stuff like that. But he seems to have played well in the games that he's come on. So that's a good positive sign. Just in relation to what you were saying there about, do we think we'll have Tony or Eze? I actually think after what I heard Teddy Sheringham talking about Tony, I think Tony will be the signing. I don't think Eze maybe will be. I think Tony's coming. Some people might think I'm obsessed with Tony. I just feel there's going to be one big signing in there, and I have a feeling he could be the one coming in. And I know what Becky was saying about his past life and what he was getting up to outside of football or whatever. But I think everyone deserves a second chance, and hopefully he'll get one here at Spurs. But back to Kulusevski, he just needs to keep playing at that consistent level, and getting the ball in midfield and passing it up to Son or into Richarlison, or even if it's someone else who we sign between now and the start of the season. And even he's great at getting goals himself. It's when you look at some of the other players that we have, they don't get enough goals, but he definitely gets goals. So he should be encouraged to do more of that. But I think having Ange there as the coach, Ange sees potential in him. And hopefully he'll start scoring more and getting into more attacking positions.
Johnny Bowe, let's stay with you. On Heung-min Son, he actually said in an interview in the last couple of days that his favourite position, his preferred position, is actually out on the wing. What do you make of that situation? Because I think most of the Spurs fans feel that he's a lot better off, on the left, cutting in. And we saw him in the 38th minute putting Spurs 2-0 up with that trademark Heung-min Son goal, top corner. We saw him do it against Arsenal. We've seen it time and time again, this type of goal. Of course, as Johnny mentioned, Donnelly making that run, so making more space for Heung-min Son to shoot. But what do you make of him playing through the middle? Because if Richarlison does stay, if we don't sign a striker in this window and Heung-min Son does end up playing through the middle, are we not wasting him by not having him out on that left side?
Yeah, I think we are. I think he's better off on the left side when he comes in down the left and then sort of moves to the right and swivels the ball and then takes a shot from 25 yards or 15 yards. He's more effective in that kind of role. You can't. Postecoglou is trying to balance the team. He's trying to get the best out of the team, he thinks. And then what happens is when you ask a player to play in a different position that they're not used to playing in, or they've been playing in a certain position for a couple of years, it's very hard to change the style of play. And the morale drops if you're getting Son to play in a different role and then it's not happening for him. A few games into the season we play West Ham and Leicester, and also the first game's Leicester. So we play them, and it doesn't go well. And Son starts thinking, I prefer playing down the left wing. So these are all the problems that you have as a football manager in the Premier League. But I think he's better off just down the left and then moving in towards the goal and then taking a shot on his right. The only thing with that is that a lot of the opposition know that that's what he's going to do. So they have a plan already set in place to block him. But look, he's so fast. He's able. I mean, that goal today. I mean, he really swiveled that ball and just bent it and curled it into the goal. It's lovely seeing that. That's the Heung-min Son that I know. Hopefully he can, continue that at the start of the season and get going, because I think he's a confidence player. If he scores against Leicester, we beat them and we move on, he's going to keep going. Remember that time when Harry Kane wasn't playing for a long period, a few seasons back? He took over the mantle of that, and he was the top goal scorer for us. He was just scoring for fun. So he's well able to do it, and he's still at an age where he can still move fast and cut in around players. But today, that's the Heung-min Son of old, and it's great to see. So he'll get confidence from that.
Becky, Lucas Bergvall said the other day that the plan is and the dream is to win the Premier League with Spurs, and we have seen so many players in the last couple of months, particularly last season, say exactly the same thing. Postecoglou has said pretty much the same thing as well for the last 12 months. What do you think Spurs need to be title contenders right now?
Keeping as many people fit as possible. I think after last year, the amount of players that we had injuries to really kind of, and then you add in the Asia Cup and things like the African Cup, really kind of like that section in the middle of the season, wasn't it? So that I think is key. I think it's all good and well, isn't it? Having that kind of belief. It's what is on the pitch. Just reading some of the comments. Then I know we keep bringing up Newcastle, but the Newcastle game last year and the few kind of games either side of it, it wasn't a brilliant end to the season. It then kind of picked up a little bit, but we need to, the good sides like City, for example, they go on runs. We don't lose to Wolves twice. We don't lose to, who did we lose last year? I can remember the past, Brentford, Bournemouth, these sort of games, Everton when we drew, they're the games that we need to get results from. And I think in order to do that step up, we've got to get results. West Ham, there's another one. We've got to get results, haven't we? Chelsea, yeah, of course. It's that, I think. And it's all very well saying, we've got this technique and, Andrew's very rigid about how this is the system is going to be played. And we're not going to tailor from it. We're not going to even change formation. But it's picking up those kind of results, those sort of in the old-fashioned midweek and, away at Stoke on a Wednesday kind of matches. We've got to get results from them. I think, in the kind of the top 6 matches, we are, certainly at home, we can on our day beat anybody. But it's got to be those sort of games because, we talked about this season, if we'd won against one of the games against Wolves, we'd have got in the Champions League. So those sorts of games start to kind of add up. So I think in order for that, we need to go on a sequence of runs. But yeah, I think keeping everybody fit is key. I think, I do think we will sign 2 players. I'm not sure which ones we will sign, but I do think we will sign. I don't think we're done. I don't think they would have, kind of cleared out as many that they have without having some players coming in, or whether that is youth players stepping up or is signings. But I do think we will make them. But yeah, I think that for that, it's got to be that kind of mentality. Everyone buys into it. And I think, we've talked before about when Ange, rings the players up and kind of convinces them to come over. And I love that. And the team spirit I mentioned before. And, but it's all very well. What is interesting is I was away last week and my mum, she was like, oh, I think Spurs will do something this season. And I thought, well, she doesn't really follow Tottenham. And I was like, what? And she went, yeah, there's just something about them. I just think so. She's obviously hearing it and reading into things, but she was like, yeah, I think. Yeah. I was like, whoa, okay.
She's not on Spurs Twitter then.
She's not, no. But and she knows that me and Jack go to all the games as well. But she just went, do you know what? Actually, I think this is the season they're going to win something. And I was like, what?
Yeah. Don't we all feel like that every year?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. She's not. She doesn't really follow it. We have that optimism. I sent to somebody who come back from Hearts actually. Is that we hate January and February because you get Pep moaning about how many fixtures there are and how there's too many games, and normally Spurs are out of everything in January and February, and we're all depressed because we're out of everything. There's nothing to play for. So yeah, I think there is a bit more of an optimism around, but it's got to be seen on the pitch.
Well, of course, in the 45th minute, Spurs went 3-0 up. Heung-min Son, Kulusevski involved again. Son with a 1-2. And then what a great finish again in the bottom corner from him. The nutmeg before the finish was sensational. 3-0 at half-time. Donnelly had a good half, as we've already mentioned. 3 changes at half-time. Austin, Skip and Maddison on. Vicario, Sarr and Bergvall all went off. A good corner from James Maddison, met by the head of Emerson Royale, hit the bar in the 50th minute. Johnny, let's come to you on this. Maddison, what do you make of his deliveries from corners? And of course, when we signed Maddison, we thought that we were going to get a free kick specialist and we'd be getting a number of goals. We haven't seen that from Maddison yet. And also what I mentioned earlier, Emerson, of course, got on the end of this, headed against the bar. Were you surprised that he started this game, particularly when Milan and Spurs are locked in talks at the moment and it is just a few million euros they are apart in their valuation and agreement?
Listen, I don't agree with a lot of things that we do in our negotiation, but on the Emerson and the Jed Spence ones, I totally agree. Jed Spence was agreed to go to Genoa for £8 million plus a sell-on, and they were very happy with him. We'd like to keep him, but we're going to offer you €6 million, and we'd like to get rid of the sell-on. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Right? You know, AC Milan, they might not be the richest club in Europe, but they have money, right? They have some money. To offer us €10 million, whatever you may think of Emerson Royal, and you want to book him an Uber, 10 million is not enough. And I think playing him today says, you know what? Don't buy him. Don't buy him. You know, we'll play him. It's not a problem. We got rid of 9 players or 8 or 9 players already. You know, if he has to stay, he'll stay. And that's the way it is. So I think there's a bit of kidology going on, and rightly so. Is he worth 18 million euros in today's market? I think 18 million euros is fine. I don't think it's taking the rip too much. Listen, I actually think he would be a fantastic signing for AC Milan. I don't think fundamentally he's a bad defender. I think he's just bad in this system, right? Okay. That's probably controversial here. I'm not gonna kill him. He's a character. He doesn't suit Ange Ball. You know, you never know. What's that saying? Life's like a box of chocolates. You never will know which one you're going to get. And I think that's what you get with Emerson Royal. As for Maddison, now, I've been quite vocal on this, right? Now, look, Brennan Johnson got a really hard time last season, okay? And sometimes for me as well, you know, not hard enough in the tackle, football IQ at times, be a bit braver, be a bit tougher in the challenge. I can't understand how James Maddison got a free pass for the entire season. He had a very good first 9 games. 10th game, obviously, he got injured against Chelsea. But since that game, and he came back, I think he's had 28 games. He scored 1 goal. Now, 1 goal, struggling for form. I can understand that coming back. You speak to Leicester fans, and I'm looking historically before we signed him. He always struggles to come back from injury, and it takes him a few games to get into the swing of it. And I expected that, but it went on and on and on. And I would say that if he doesn't watch his step, and I think, you know, he's got a point to prove with England being left out. And I think he might have. I like the fact that they're fighting for positions. I think when he sat on that bench today in that first half, he was watching that and he was thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to up my game here. I really am, because there is genuine competition. Same with Basuma, right? You got Gray and Bergvall. Bergvall is progressing that ball. The problem is, for me, Maddison needs space. And at Leicester, he had space on the ball. When you have inverted backs squeezing the game like a vacuum pack, hermetically sealed vacuum pack game, it's like Piccadilly Circus in that midfield. And so what we find is him dropping back and playing deep. And I don't think that he's a deep lying midfielder personally. I like to see him up at the front, behind the striker, or behind front 2 or 3, whoever he is. I think that's where he's best. And I think he's going to really have to up his game. There were moments in the, as Johnny was saying, in that second half where you know, he didn't quite have his touch, but he was getting in the positions. He was calling for the ball. He's going to have to perform because there's people ready to take his place. And that is good for Tottenham Hotspur, because I think a lot of the people just knew that they were on that team sheet last season. And whatever they did, fine. What are you going to do? Who are you going to replace me with? Him? Having a laugh? No. So I think it's all good in the hood as far as that's concerned. But everyone needs to up their game and remain consistent. My worry is, though, that it's too many games. We went from 41 games last season, the least for 19 years. This year we're looking at let's. If we actually get past the first round of each of the cups, we could be looking at like 60 games. So we have to spread the load. Is Ange going to rotate? I'm not sure. I think he will. But Maddison, he needs to be more consistent. I don't know. I'm sure that is the worst performance he's had in the Premier League in return last season.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say as well, Johnny, that he had so many opportunities to score today, and he missed.
Yeah. It's about putting the ball in the net, just like Richarlison, just like Werner. You know, it's about taking your chances. And young Will Lankshear there, 19 years of age. You know what he does is he keeps putting the ball in the net. And that reminds me of someone like, for example, a Gary Lineker, who did nothing in a game but put the ball in the back of the net, right? That's what old-fashioned strikers used to do. Yeah.
Johnny Bowe, let's come to you. Let's talk about the goals that we conceded in the 52nd and 54th minute. A couple of goals conceded. We looked very comfortable, and then we conceded a couple of goals just after half-time. What did you make of the goals that we conceded? And overall, I know some people could say, well, we didn't have Van der Ven in there, we didn't have Romero, and we haven't had the mainstay of the defence and the centre-back so far at pre-season. But we did ship a lot of goals last year. Do you worry about this aspect, and do you worry about, many people said last season about Ange Postecoglou having a plan B?
Yeah, I mean, there seemed to be, well, just to answer the first question in relation to the goals, there were counter-attack goals, and I think it was a player called Ilichenko, I think, who scored. He actually looked quite good. He might be somebody to look at for us because he was scoring for fun there. But they were. I mean, the heat and the humidity. You could see our players are really tiring near the end there on 73, 74 minutes. And I think that's when they started getting their 2 goals back after being 3-0 up. But how many times have we been up in games in the past? I mean, it is a little bit of our Achilles heel. Even this is a friendly, I know. But sometimes, like, we're up, 4-1, and all of a sudden it's 4-3. You might remember the Antonio Conte game when we were playing Southampton. I remember listening on the radio. I was going to a lovely part of Wicklow in Ireland, a place called Bray, and I remember driving in the car, and we were 3-1 up, I think, with about 10 minutes to go. And all of a sudden, I went in to get some petrol, came back out 3-all, and that was the game. He just went absolutely berserk. So we have this thing of being up in game, and then all of a sudden the opposition get 2 goals in the space of 2 minutes. So that kind of thing worries me, because in the Premier League, you're not going to get away with that. It's going to be curtains, and all the teams, Becky mentioned Wolves, beating us twice. Those teams won't let you away with that. So there were counter-attack goals. We have to be very careful that when we push forward and we leave the gaps at the back, because good sides will punish us. But just in relation to the players that we have, or that we had coming on. I mean, near the end there, he was changing a lot of the players, and different players were coming on. So with that, there will be a lack of concentration, I suppose, and that's probably why the other side did get their goals back. But ultimately, as Johnny said, it's about putting the ball in the back, and then we put it in 4 times. But you speak. One of my best friends is a Celtic fan. And the first thing he said to me when he heard that Ange was leaving Celtic to go to Spurs, he was sort of saying, you must remember, if the opposition scores 4 goals, we're going to score 5. That's the way it is. It's like playing the lottery. It's just you take it. It's risky football, and there's a naivety in the way he plays or the way he manages the team. My only concern is that naivety of no plan B, as you said. There doesn't seem to be a plan B. And if the opposition are able to counter-attack our style of play, in the first half, second half, we start playing a little bit different, and it's too late then. They've already been 3-0. We get back to 3-2, and we lose the game 3-2. Whereas we should really, why didn't he know? Why didn't he understand the tactics? Why didn't the coaching staff know how Leicester were going to play in the first half? Why did we have to go 2-0 down? I'm only hypothetically speaking that's game, but I'm just saying if it did happen. And so why aren't we going 2-0 up, rather than 2-0 down? And that seems to be happening in a lot of the games. Now I know in the friendlies it's been going well against QPR Hearts and I can't remember the other team, but against K-League, whatever. But you're right. I don't think there is a plan B. I think he only knows how to play that one way. And if Pep Guardiola or whoever it is comes up with a way of counteracting that style of play, what do we do? What are we doing? So that's the only thing I would criticise about Ange. I still think I want him there, and there's lots of positive things to come. And I like the way he's developing the youth, but you'd have to be just a little bit concerned about the naive tactics and strategy in some of the games.
Some of the comments as kind of putting forward what I was going to say is that with Højbjerg gone, in the past, like you say, in those games where we were up, Højbjerg tended to come on, didn't he, to kind of solidify things. And with Højbjerg not there, does that mean that we are getting Gallagher? Because we need a CDM to do that. Because at the moment, the players that we've currently got, do they come on and do that? Is Basuma going to come on and play that role? Who does that currently, in the setup that we've got at the moment for that exact situation that hopefully we are, maybe 3-2 up and someone comes on for the last 10 minutes?
Does the Chelsea captain go to Spurs though, Becky? And
probably
I don't know.
He's in their kit, isn't he? He's in their kit launch, wasn't he, as well? So no, I don't think he is. I'm just using him as an example.
Yeah. Becky, let's stay with you. In the 67th minute, Will Lankshear, of course, put the ball in the net for Spurs, making it 4-2. Great ball in from Timo Werner. I know there has been a lot of criticism about Timo Werner and, of course, signing him again on loan for another season. Great crossing, and that is exactly what we need to see more of him. But on Will Lankshear, what do you expect to happen with him and his future? Because there are a lot of clubs interested at the moment taking him on loan. Or does it all depend on what we do in the transfer window?
Yeah, I'd like to think that they've had this conversation with him, and it isn't just he's like the last one to find out when something happens. I'd like to think that the club have because he signed that contract, didn't he? And he signed a 5-year contract about 3-4 weeks ago. So he's obviously in their plans, but I'd like to hope that they've had this conversation with him and that he would like to stay. I've just had somebody reply on my Twitter, actually, it's a Middlesbrough fan, saying that they would like to have him on loan. It's just, it's really, like I said, going back to it before, if reading the comments, people are saying that, Kulusevski will start in front of Richarlison. I don't think he will. I think Richarlison is fit. Richarlison starts in front of Kulusevski in that position. But based on last season, maybe the close season has changed that. But I just think, he possibly, if Richarlison stays and we've got Kulusevski, Will actually was like third in line, even maybe fourth behind Son. So I'd like to hope he's had that conversation with them as what their plans are for him. Because otherwise he's just had a great pre-season and he goes off and has a loan and he builds his development. We've not talked much about Alfie Devine and Ashley Phillips. They went out on loan last season. They've come back and played kind of bit parts in pre-season. Certainly in the fact that we've not had Dragoshin was back today. We've not had no centre backs, and Ashley Phillips has played a little bit. I'd just like to hope they've had this conversation, and that all we've said so far today is the kind of building the academy and the things that are going on behind the scenes, because I think he's deserved his right to stay here. But equally, if the club feel that he needs to go and have a loan somewhere else for his development, it's just a tricky one, because like I said before, the 4 or 5 players that have played for us this season that were in the under-21 setup last year, it's worked so well because they've been playing so regularly, and some of them play together in like England and 19s and things like that. So they've got that kind of connection, and if the club is playing to that formation as well, that step up isn't such a big deal. We haven't really had time to talk about Mikey Moore, and I just think if the club feel that he is ready to step up, then that's great. But I just like to hope that they've had that conversation with him, and it isn't just all dependent on what happens to Richarlison.
Yeah, we did cover that actually, Becky, in length on the last podcast. Players like Devine and Phillips, they go out on loan, they play all these minutes, all these games, and of course they come back to Spurs, get very limited time. So they must be banging on the door saying, well, what's going to happen? Are we going to get game time? If not, then perhaps another loan or people move away. So it's a juggling act. It must be very, very hard to manage as a club and a manager. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens with a lot of these players, as we've already said. Johnny, lastly, in the 81st minute, Team K League scored their third goal of the game, the last goal of the game, sorry. What a finish it was. Austin punching away and then he hit on the volley. But Team K League did have a number of chances in this game. They could have scored a hatful. I know Spurs could have scored a hatful as well. It was a truly entertaining game for the neutral. But are you worried about us defensively going into next season?
I've said it. I feel like a stuck record, right? I just believe play three at the back, play Dragusin, play Romero, play Mickey van der Ven. These are three players unusually comfortable on the ball, unusually brilliant at bringing the ball out. I'm not saying I stayed up and watched every Copa America game, because I didn't, but I watched enough to see who I believe is the best all-round defender in the world, Romero, bring that ball out time and time again from the back, putting passes along the pitch, dragging Argentina through those games. We have players that can supplement the midfield, right? So if Romero goes forward, we've still got Dragusin, who we saw was outstanding in the Euros. His commitment in the challenge. We aren't going to be as exposed, but we're not going to be any less effective up front. I don't understand this thing. Oh, we can't play three, we won't be as effective. We will be as effective. We'll be more effective because I think it's a greater balance between the two. If we go back to two at the back, I fear that we are going to see the same stuff all over again. And let's be honest, there's a lot of stubbornness about Ange, right? When Destiny went down injured, we had Oliver Skip playing left back. We had Emerson playing left back. A refusal to put Mickey van der Ven there, and then eventually bring in Dragusin. He was chomping at the bit. And, the three of them, they looked seamless. They looked like a real top unit. And I think that's the way we got to go if we are going to be considered a top team, because other teams are going to improve. I just need to go. Dragusin, if you watched him for Genoa, brilliant in the air. That's another thing that we were lacking at set pieces last year. And I remember standing behind the goal, funny enough, against Sheffield United, and nudging everybody when the first corner came about and Cameron Archer was trying to noise up Vicario, and Dragusin is constantly pushing him away, defending. I thought, well, hang on a minute, where's this guy been all season? Man up, let's get real, right? Let's defend properly. And I think with those three in the centre there, and they're athletic, they can score goals. Mickey scores, Dragusin scores, Romero scores. Then you've got what Ange wants. That it doesn't matter who you are or what your position is. If you see space, drive into it, draw the opposition out, create space for others. And I think that's the way to go, rather than the two up on that high line, ball over the top, and it's left to Mickey van der Ven to try and sprint to try and to block it, or Vicario to pull off a wonder save. I'm sick of seeing it. I hope we tweak it. I hope there is a plan A.2 or B, whatever you want to call it. Because if it has, I think we can have a good season. Without it, we're going to be seeing the same.
The very last question for you all, and we'll start with Johnny Bowe, because he's got to get back to work. So we appreciate your time, Johnny. What do you expect to happen? What do you want to happen in the next 30 days? And how optimistic are you feeling ahead of next season?
Well, I'd love to see Eze or Tony or both come in to the club. I think, we're talking about what do we have to do to get to the top of the league and to win it. I think you'd have to have players like that come in. And Teddy Sheringham, spoke about Tony last week, and he thought that's the signing that Spurs need. So look, we'll see how that all goes. With the current squad, if it stays that way and we start the season against Leicester and progress, I can probably see the same finish. I can probably see us finishing in 5th again, if I'm being honest. But if they add on some players and some really good quality players, then I can see it's much higher. Not say we're going to win it now, but certainly maybe 2nd or 3rd, and that will be an improvement on the last season. So I'm optimistic about it, Chris. I'm going to stay positive. If God forbid the first few games don't go well and it starts, I'm still going to stay. I'm not going to start jumping on it's Daniel Levy's fault or something. I'm going to stay positive and trust in the process, because there is a development going on behind the background there, and you can see that he's trying to develop young players and bring them into the squad. And it's probably part of his remit. It's probably part of the contract that you must develop players and bring them in. And I think Mourinho and Conte didn't really do that. That's not their way of doing it. They just want to be given a war chest of 100 million, and I go by there. But remember when the Bale money came in, we got Roberto Soldado, we got Paulinho, I think around £36 million at the time. We got Capoue. The money has to be spent, as Johnny said and Becky said, the money has to be spent wisely. And if we do that, then and maybe Tony isn't the right player. Maybe he isn't going to fit the style, as you were saying. Maybe he's the wrong player. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we shouldn't be buying him. But whoever we get in, let's hope it fits the system that Ange is playing and that they can push on.
Will we be Googling him?
Did you? Well, Johnny, did you Google Vicario? Did you Google Van der Ven?
Actually, funny enough, there's an Italian Iranian journalist who I've forgotten his name. Johnny,
1 second. Johnny Bowe, thank you so much for joining us.
Johnny, nice talking to you.
Where can people find you on social media and what you're up to at the moment?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter there, or X, Johnny Bowe 1, and I'm back on Q102 radio here in Dublin. Actually, in about half an hour's time, I'll be on at 6 o'clock, q102.ie on the web. You can hear me.
Johnny, thank you so much. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Great.
Johnny, sorry for interrupting. Go on, carry on.
What was the second?
Johnny, let's come to you on the transfer window, because, as I said, you've been very critical of how the board have done things in recent seasons. But do you feel, you've kind of alluded to this already, do you feel that is it going to be different now? Do you think that Ange will kick us on and for next season, for example, that question that gets asked on a lot of channels, particularly this one? Top 4, is it important to you, or is a trophy important to you?
Winning. It's all about winning. It's all about winning. Of course we want top 4. Of course we want Champions League. The nights under the lights, but I want to be winning. Okay. It's all about the winning, and we haven't done enough of that. Will it be Ange? I don't know. I think whatever happens from this point in, we have to, from now always, we must have a progressive coach here at the club. No more going to pragmatic football. There's no point buying a team that expresses themselves and then bringing in a pragmatic coach. I wanted Arne Slot. That was my number 1 pick. Ange has come in. I've got to get behind him. There are things that I question. I hope he smashes it and takes us to the promised land. He needs players. He needs players. There are players we can clearly see we're short. But are we in a better place than we were 18 months ago? 100%. Are we better in a place than we were 2 years ago? 100%. I wasn't happy 2 years ago. I'm much happier now. I'm much happier with the recruitment. Look at the players that we've got now. Could have only dreamed of those 2 years ago, that what we were looking at. And what's worrying me is we got a better left back. Destiny's better than anything we've had for a long time. Mickey van der Ven's better than anything we've had a long time. Romero is. Our goalkeeper is. Okay. So why are we shipping so many goals? Okay. I believe it must be the system. Therefore, the system needs to be tweaked a bit. Okay. Yes, we need some other players, but Ange needs to be maybe not so stubborn. and have a balance between attacking football that we all want to see with a drop of pragmatism at times, because we want to win. We want to win, and winning and getting into the Champions League draws more players, better players. But I know, knowing Levy, the way we're operating now, even if we did get into the Champions League, forget about us signing the Nico Williams. We're looking for the next Nico Williams before he becomes Nico Williams. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
When does that change?
I'll tell you when it changes. I think it changes when you have a conveyor belt of an academy, which we've never had. Producing one player or two players every 10, 15 years is not an academy. What's the saying? Build it and they will come. We built an amazing state-of-the-art academy. Nothing much is coming through. Now it's coming through. And we're supplementing that. We're purchasing the top young talent the last 2 years, between 15 and 19, from other clubs throughout Europe. Vuskovic, Hall. I mean, I could go on, right? There's a whole load. You know them, I know them, right? And so basically what's going to happen is, instead of having one player coming through, we have a conveyor belt of players coming through. And what that enables you to do, once these players start to come in, whether it's a Donnelly or a Mikey Moore, and they're filling these positions in the team, what it enables you to do is then to go out and buy one or two crucial big name players to supplement it, like Arsenal did with Rice and some of the other purchases that they've made, because they had the youth coming through, whether it be Saka or Martinelli or I'm not going to go through the Arsenal team. And
Yeah.
if they don't make it, they're generating enough money, the Smith Rowes, the Enquiries and the Reece Nelsons alike, which they will sell 30, 40, 25 million, which will generate the serious cash for us to reinvest back into the team, which again, we haven't done. When did we last sell a player for money or for a profit? It's been a long time. So I think this model works, coupled with the signings and the data-led model. I think we're in a really good place, but it's not going to happen overnight. But I really am positive, and I've been very negative for a long while.
I was going to say, Johnny, you've actually surprised me on this podcast, because you've been so much more positive than I thought you would be.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I've got plenty to say that's negative, believe me, right, about certain things. But I do see light at the end of the tunnel. I've got to be honest.
Becky, lastly, let's come to you. What do you expect to happen? We've heard from Johnny. He says that he don't think we'll sign Eze, don't think we'll sign Tony, but we're going to get two in. Would you agree?
Yeah, I said earlier, didn't I? I think we will sign two. I would like it to be Eze, and like I said before, if it is Tony, then I'd be pleased with that. I do think we do need a Prem-proven striker, but like we said earlier on, clubs haven't got money, and they've got to be able to buy somebody in as a replacement. So we've had Gibbs White kind of name banded about. Solanke, are there number 9s available? There aren't many number 9s available across the world, whether let alone Prem proven. So I think that's possibly why Tony is being mentioned. But yeah, I do think we will sign two players. I agree with everything else people have said. Really, I would like us to win the cup. The Carabao Cup this year as well. We'll be involved in. Hopefully, we don't get knocked out so early. The Europa League, if we've got the strength and depth. Bergwell said the minimum aim is Champions League, but they want to win the league. We're not going to win all of it. We're not at that point yet. But I think, like I said, if we can kind of get those results that, we've been lacking of, 5, 6, 7 years, then those points are going to start to kind of add up, and it will make us more of a kind of a team that's going to compete at the highest level. But yeah, I think I'm not quite optimistic. I said before, I'm not one of those people who counts down the days until there's the next match. I like all sport. I've been watching the Olympics, Wimbledon, the Euros, the cricket. I was at Old Trafford on Monday. So, I'm looking forward to the season, but equally just, enjoying my summer as well.
Becky, we won a tray. On the weekend, right? I mean, will we have? I don't suppose there'll be a parade down the high street, but maybe they'll charge a couple of pounds. Daniel will be able to go and get a picture with the tray with your kids. Listen, look, we won the Audi Cup, we won the tray. Hopefully it's the start of lots to come.
I'd love to see that parade very soon down that high road. Yeah, we deserve it, all of us. Becky, you've been a great guest as normal. You're back with us very soon. Thank you so much. Where can people find you and what you're up to at the moment?
You can find me on X. I'm on my school holidays. Going, it's my birthday at the weekend, and then we're going away, and then I'm back on with you for the second Bayern game, aren't I? I'm not at that game because I'm away, but I'll be on the show talking about that one. Which, if still remains to be seen if Harry's going to play in that game. I know he's not playing. Apparently, he's not playing in the Korean one. So whether he is back at North London, but yeah, thanks for having me on, and I'll see you on the 10th.
Well, have a great birthday, Becky. Thank you so much. And Jonny, it's been a pleasure having you here, and you're very welcome. So do come back and talk to us very soon. And where can people find you and what you're up to at the moment?
Becky, happy birthday for the weekend.
Thank you.
You can find me here, Johnny H3232. If you go on there, there's links to my Instagram and my TikTok. And you can normally find me either on Tottenham on Tour or Spurs Talk Show, which actually at the moment he's having a bit of a sabbatical. And it's been a pleasure to be on. It's funny because I always used to watch you when you were doing the stadium tour, and that was the only way I could get the update. I thought, I'm not driving down there. Hats off to Chris Cowlin, right? Going down there every day, giving us an update. And so your success on it is deserved for all the dedication you put in. And I know you're like me, you go down to the under 21s and the under 18s. So pleasure to be on. It's been very good chatting to everyone. And listen, hopefully we got something positive to say and see at the weekend. And I can't wait for the return of the main man, Eric Dyer, next week, because I know what everyone's waiting for.
Brilliant. You've been a great guest. Thank you, Jonny. And thank you, obviously, to Jonny Bowe as well. Thank you to Becky. Thank you for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. And we will see you again very soon for another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. Until then, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.